Hey folks, we'll start a bit later. Just tell us just came in and we're saying hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. I'm having trouble with my computer here, my iPad, so I'm trying to work this out.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the June 22nd meeting of the Alberta Clyde Regional District Board of Directors. We are coming to you live in person as well as on broadcast here through YouTube. So this is a hybrid meeting. And before we start, I'd like to recognize that we're conducting our business today primarily on the territories of the Pupatchisett and Shot First Nations. To recognize that fact, but since we are in a hybrid meeting, we have folks coming from all over the regional district and perhaps even beyond, so maybe even some Coast Salish territory as well. I would note that we have myself, Vice Chair McNabb, Director Roberts in the room today, as well as Wendy and Mike in the room. And then we have our visitors from TELUS, so we'll get to them when they're up on the agenda. Okay, so we do have our agenda in front of us today. And, oh wait, I should say, because we have a meeting conducting on YouTube through broadcast, we don't monitor the chat when it comes to the YouTube broadcast itself. So if there are any comments or questions period at the end of the meeting, you would send it to responses@acrd.bc.ca. And that's the way in which we check to see if there's any public comment. Okay. Oh, and also if you're on the registered Zoom broadcast or the Zoom meeting, we don't monitor the chat or the Q&As there as well. So the email address is the best way to go about contacting us during and after the meeting. With that in mind, we do have an approval of the agenda with the addition of a late item under section 12. That's calling a special board of directors meeting on July 13th, electronically via Zoom. So that can be added to the agenda, I think, without any fanfare. Are there any other items, or can we move the agenda as amended? Thank you, Dr. Cote. Oh, and Dr. Cote is in the room. I think when I was saying people were in the room, she was out taking a call. Yeah. Okay. Okay, moved by Dr. Cote, seconded by Director Roberts. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, do we have any declarations, conflicts of interest, or gift exceeding $250? Or I think time constraints? I would note that Director Johnson Tokwat sent her regrets, and I believe Director Minions, Mayor Minions, is going to be a bit late. Those are the only ones I'm aware of, but I don't count for quorum on the internet here, so I'm hoping that the folks who have zoomed in to stay connected. All right, thanks. Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I just need to step out at 3 o'clock for a few minutes to be at the bus stop. And I need to leave by 4 o'clock today, just so you're aware.
Okay, thank you. And Wendy, go ahead.
Thank you. Director Steele will be a bit late, around 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none. I don't think there are any conflicts of interest or gifts. So moving on to item 4, the adoption of minutes. Item 4A is the Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee meeting dated June 6th, 2022.
Move the minutes.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roberts. Any comments, additions, deletions, modifications? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? A motion carried. Okay, and that brings us to the Board of Directors minutes dated June 8th, 2022. Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by. Thank you, Director Shannon. Any comments, questions, additions, deletions, modifications? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. All right, we don't have any open meeting petitions or delegations or presentations, so that brings us to correspondence for action. Item 6A is an item regarding the North Coast Regional District invitation as a member of the CCN to participate in a proposed meeting with Minister Osborne regarding commercial fishing. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding that? I'm not opposed to participating. Having a fisheries conversation with the province seems weird to me, but I guess it's a new day, it's a new day. Director Cote, go ahead.
So I'll make a motion that the ACRD Board of Directors accept the invitation from North Coast Regional District to participate in the proposed joint meeting at the 2022 UBCM convention with Minister Osborne, Minister of Land, Water and Resource Stewardship, to discuss opportunities for communities to work more closely with all parties on planning for the commercial fishing industry into the future.
Great. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you, Director Roberts. And any comments or questions? Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. So would that be just the chair then that would be attending?
No, we could open it up to whomever I think would make sense. I probably want to talk to the other regional district to see how many they're bringing. It's probably only going to be a half-hour meeting, so too big. But yeah, if you're interested, sure. Or anybody. Yeah.
I think that the regional district, our regional district, has a couple of directors on like the there used to be a fisheries committee once upon a time, and I think you're on the West Coast Aquatic, so maybe those directors would be the best to attend this.
Yeah, I'll have to mention this to Director Steer. I think he's on West Coast Aquatic as well. Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, with that, all in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item B, which is the Coastal Restoration Society requesting a letter of support for their upcoming shoreline cleanup project on Broken Island groups, or Broken Group Islands. Dr. Roberts?
I'd like to make that motion.
Thank
that the ACRD Board of Directors forward a letter to Coastal Restoration Society supporting their upcoming shoreline cleanup project in Broken Group of Islands.
Yeah, see, I infected everyone. Director McNabb, second? Yeah, and then comment, go ahead.
So I'm kind of wondering what working with collaboratively means in the letter. I think we need to write our own letter that specifies how we're going to respond. Because I'm not quite working collaboratively could mean that we need to get a barge down there to take all of the stuff wherever it's got to go or whatever. I just don't want to be sort of reeling ourselves into something we haven't provided funding for.
Thank you, Dr. McNabb. Dr. Roberts?
Yeah, and I appreciate your comment, Director McNabb. This group has funding in place. They've received a grant, and basically they're just because part and parcel of our area that they would like our support in the form of a letter. And I agree with you. You know, if we want to write our own letter, then I think it would be satisfactory. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, then, Wendy?
Yes, so staff have made note of that, and we'll just amend the letter to provide a letter of support, but not specifying, you know, committing the regional district to anything it shouldn't be.
Thank you. Okay, is that to your satisfaction, Dr. McNabb?
Yeah, I just kind of would like it more defined about our participation. I would certainly support it. There's no two ways about that. But, you know, if we're looking at removing the Van Lean and putting it in our landfill, I'm not quite sure we're there. So,
Yeah, I think that's well taken. So we'll do what we can there. Okay, thank you. With that, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item C, which is a request for support from the Ucluelet Tourism Association in regards to a tourism marketing program levy. Would anyone like to speak to this?
I can quickly speak to it. So their district or Ucluelet Tourism is just looking for continued support from the regional district. They are reapplying for the hotel tax, basically what it is in Ucluelet. So looking for a letter of support.
Okay, that makes sense. Dr. Cole, go ahead.
No, I would just like to make the motion if I could.
Yep, that makes sense. Would anyone like to second? Thank you, Director McNabb. Any comments? Dr. McNabb, go ahead.
so I'd just like to note that the tourism tax that was initiated in the Alberni Valley was 2%, and this one's 3%, which is the maximum under the program.
Thank you for that. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Alrighty, that brings us to item 7. Would anyone like to pull anything out from item 7? Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Item C, the Stand.Earth. There's a motion here that UBC on protecting BC coast from acid wash water dumping being brought forward by Vancouver. I'm wondering if we have that problem in the inlet, the Alberni Inlet, or on the coastal shores outside of Tofino, Ucluelet, and of our area. Not sure if it is a problem.
Is that something that we could get a report on from staff in the future?
Yes, if that's the direction of the board, a resolution probably to that effect would be suggested.
Would you like to do that, Director Cote?
I would, so I'd like to make a motion that staff investigate if we are also having the effects of acid wash water dumping.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roberts. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, I think I just have a question for staff in regards to the Public Safety and Solicitor General letter. Is this something that we can follow up on, or we have already followed up on in regards to any financial assistance for emergency response costs? Is this something that exists now or can happen in the future? Terry, do you know anything about that? And then we'll get to Director Bodner quickly.
Nope, sorry, I don't know anything about that, but I can follow up for you.
Yeah, that would be good if you could. Okay, Director Bodner, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. I just want to know if how would they find out whether we or our shoreline on the West Coast would be vulnerable to these boats? Would they have to do a study on it? Would they have to test the waters?
Yeah, I think that might be something that staff can investigate with West Coast Aquatic and other organizations that may be active on the West Coast and in the area. So that can be something that is likely a desktop study, especially like phone calls. We'll be able to triangulate whether or not this is a real concern for the region fairly readily, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, without any further items, if we could have a motion to receive the, thank you, Director Roberts, seconded by Director McNabb. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carries. All right, that brings us to item 8A, which is the 2021 Statement of Financial Information. Please go ahead, Terry.
Sure. So the statement of financial information for 2021 is presented for your approval today. As required by legislation, we have advertised that this will be presented at today's board meeting. The report includes a few components: the audited financial statements, schedule of remuneration and expenses, as well as payments to suppliers. The financial statements received a clean audit report from KPMG, our auditors, in April. A couple of items to note on those financial statements. One would be the landfill closure liability substantially increased from the prior year. This is a result of new closure plans for both the Alberni Valley and the West Coast landfills on the new regulations. So staff will be reviewing our closure funds to make sure that we are adequately contributing to that each year so that we're funding that currently unfunded liability that's on our books. Another highlight for the year was that we received about $5.7 million worth of conditional transfers or grants from different levels of government. This is about a $3.8 million increase from the prior year, so a substantial influx of grant funding last year. Some of the major grants were the Organics Diversion Project through the Strategic Priority Fund, as well as the Safe Restart money from the province. For other components of the SOFI report, the board remuneration and expenses is laid out in there. It was approximately $163,000 total in 2021, and as well as the employee remuneration and expenses, which was about $3 million. For the supplier portion of the report, there are 3 suppliers that the ACRD paid more than $1 million to in 2021. One is Barry and Vale Contracting, which we have operations contract for both the Alberni Valley and the West Coast landfill. The Municipal Finance Authority, which I guess you could argue maybe isn't necessarily a supplier because these are our debt payments for our own regional district services, as well as debt servicing for our member municipalities. And finally, Roland's Machinery, which we bought the curbside organic carts as well as the recycling carts. Finally, there was approximately $360,000 worth of grant funding provided to outside organizations during the year. And this board report requires approval prior to submission, and the deadline is June 30th. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, looking for board approval.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or motions? Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. On page 43, inventories for resale, what would that be?
Most of that is our fuel at the Alberni Valley Airport.
Thank you. Director Bodner, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wonder, Terry, if you can explain to me from page 46, it talks about annual surplus and then under acquisition of tangible capital assets. In 2021, I didn't see a budget, but there was actual in brackets is $1,830,000 and 351.
For sure. So that's how much assets we bought. So our capital purchases during the year. So in 2020, we budgeted 2.4 million, and in 2021, we budgeted 1.8. The way our financial planning works, we don't actually have a budget line specifically for that. So that's why there's nothing in that budget column. It's just that local government's financial setup is a little bit different. So it doesn't necessarily comply, or it does comply, sorry. It just doesn't necessarily give a budget line for PSAB purposes. So, but yeah, it was $1.8 million worth of capital purchases or building during 2021.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
PSAB. Sorry. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. I should have talked to Terry before this meeting. On page 44, we have the electoral area administration. We budgeted for over 242,000, and it says actual only at 40 or 36. Val?
Sure. So the grants that are provided, like the Community Works Funds grants that are provided to outside organizations such as the Sprout Lake Community Association, as well as the Beaver Creek Community Club, are budgeted through these manners or through this service. And because neither the Sprout Lake Community Association or the Beaver Creek Community Club really got a whole lot done last year, still due to the effects of COVID, that money was budgeted but wasn't spent. So it was carried over and it is available for them to use in 2022.
The chair would note she gave the thumbs up. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, if we could have a motion to accept. Thank you, Director Roberts, seconded by Director Cole. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. That brings us to item B, which is the bylaw F1148-3, amendment to Beaver Creek Water System Rates and Regulation bylaw. Before we introduce it, Director McNabb, do you just want to move it or hear the overview first?
Sure. I would move that the Alberta Claycott Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to the bylaw F1148-3, Beaver Creek Water Local Service Area Rates and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2022. And I think Mr. Cumberland is
And he is here.
ready.
Okay. And do we have a motion, a seconder, please? Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Eddie, do you have any detail you wanted to add?
Oh, Mr. Chair, it's just a bylaw amendment to increase the connection fee from $3,800 to $42 to better reflect the actual costs of your typical 6-hour installation. And then also a $850 fee for a water model analysis if necessary, both effective July 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.
I would move second reading.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Cole. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed?
And I
Motion
would
carried.
move third reading.
Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Comments? All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.
And I would move that the Albany Claycott Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw F1148-3, Beaver Creek Water Local Service Area Rates and Regulation Amendment 2022.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Beckett. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item C, bylaw 1147-2, amendment to the Banfield Water Rates System Regulations. Director Beckett, do you just want to carry on or do you want this same overview first?
Why don't we go with the overview first, sir, and then I'm happy to introduce the motion.
Great, thank you. Please, Eddie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be an amendment to bylaw F1147 to increase the monthly water rates from $49 a month to $60 a month and include the same water model analysis fee of $850 effective July 1st, 2022.
Great, thank you. Any further comments? Please go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll go ahead with the motion, sir. That the Alberni Claycott Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to bylaw number F1147-2, Banfield Water Local Service Area Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw 2022.
Great. Do we have a second, please? Thank you, Director McNabb. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
And second reading, sir.
All righty, seconded by Director Roberts. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
And third reading.
Seconded by, thank you, Director Bodner. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.
And finally, that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw number F1147-2 Banfield Local Service Area Rates and Regulations Amendment 2022.
And seconded by Director Roberts. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Great. That brings us to item D, which is an amendment to the Tofino Ucluelet Airport fees. Mark, please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, this is a bylaw amendment to our airport fees. It will be an inclusion of basically a lease application fee in section 5 of the document. We've never had this before, and due to our popularity out here on the West Coast, everybody wants to lease some land from us. It was taking a lot of staff time to deal with tire kickers. I'll say it to a lesser degree. This fee will cover our staff time now for development of leases and also some of the administration costs associated with that. We've also developed a frequently asked question format, which will be able to be fine-tuned for both the Tofino or Long Beach Airport and the Port Alberni Airport.
Great, thanks, Mark. Okay, so with that, we have several motions in front of us. Dr. Roberts, please go ahead.
I'd make the motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to the bylaw cited as Tofino Ucluelet Airport Fees Amendment Bylaw number R1016-6/2022.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Cote. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.
I'd make the recommendation that the second amendment, second reading of the bylaw. Sorry.
Great, thank you. Seconded by Dr. Cole. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Third reading of the bylaw.
Thank you. We have seconder. Thank you, Director Bodner. Comments? Okay, all those in favor? Motion carried.
And finally, that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors adopt the bylaw cited as Tofino Ucluelet Airport Fees Amendment Bylaw number R1016-6/2022.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to item B, or E, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, this is a contract for vehicle parking services at the Long Beach Airport. Currently, we have no fee structure or ability to charge for parking at the Long Beach Airport parking lot. We're basically talking the terminal parking lot. It's being used for some long-term storage of some vehicles and organizations on the West Coast, and we're trying to deter that. The reason being is we have a limited parking spot, basically 60 spots with our expanded parking lot area. And currently today, I have 26 vehicles parked in that 60 car parking lot. So the aim of this structure is to utilize a short-term contract as a trial with Robbins. They're the same organization that is doing the current paid parking in Tofino. Excuse me, that's my fire pager going off. And we will be basically conducting site visits with that organization, Robbins, on a strictly vehicle-only access. So they'll be scanning the parking lot as we would usually do at the Tofino sites. Parking fees will also be similar to the Tofino current model, which is $3 for 2 hours or $12 per day.
Thank you for that. Dr. Roberts, you have your microphone. Do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. I would make the recommendation that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to bylaw cited as the correct one. Oh, parking services, sorry. That the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute a 6-month contract with Robbins for parking services at the Long Beach Airport.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Cote. Comments? Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. So this is for short-term parking. And how many spots did you say we had? 60?
We have through the chair, we have 60 spots at the moment with our parking lot expansion. And we'll be charging parking in that area.
Do we have any long-term parking?
Long-term parking would also be looked after in the same location. So the gravel would classify as a gravel parking lot as our long-term parking lot. And that would still be $12 a day.
All right, thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? Director Bodnar, go ahead. She's all good. Oh, you're muted though, Director Bodnar.
Sorry. The people that are using it for storage right now, would they pay a fee to be there or would they have to go somewhere else?
Through the chair, we are trying to move those people on so they can find other parking not on the taxpayer.
Thank you.
Great. I don't see any more comments. So all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, that brings us to item F. But before we get there, Mark, do you have to get going?
Nope.
No, you're all good? Okay. All right, thanks though. That brings us to item F, which is building inspection agreement with Ho-Chuck-Lisset. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so this is a renewal of the building inspection agreement we have with Ho-Chuck-Lisset. They requested that we extend it to make it a 5-year agreement. We do intermittent inspections for them. It's not a large volume, but it's certainly something that's an important service that we provide for them. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd really like to provide service to everybody that participates in the regional district. I believe that right now we have a contract with the city of Port Alberni to help with building inspection. And I'm just wondering if we have the ability to expand on that with things that we're doing, like putting notice on title rather than going further with infractions, building infractions. I'm just wondering, asking staff, do we have the ability to expand to this? And has the city actually filled that position that we're filling in right now? Thank you.
So with respect to the contract with Ho-Chuck-Lisset, yeah, we certainly have the capability, the capacity. I mean, their volumes don't warrant, even a part-time building inspector. So it is, a handful of inspections a year. And when we have been doing that already for them. And I would have to report back on the city of Port Alberni building inspection agreement, which we could do at the next board meeting.
Great. Director McNabb, go ahead.
So I would move that the Alberni-Claycott Regional District Board of Directors resolve. That's a strange word. It is resolved. Okay. To enter into a building inspector resource sharing agreement with the Ho-Chuck-Lisset tribe government for a 5-year term and authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute the agreement on behalf of the regional district.
I bet you the wording has something to do with the treaty. Director Roberts, go ahead. Thank you, Director Roberts. Okay, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item G. And before we begin, I do have a question. Is this going to incorporate this risk vulnerability assessment? Is it going to incorporate the just the incompetence of Boss Hogg and the Teflon nature of the Duke boys? I just would note that there's a total typo in there, but yeah. Heather, I think you're the one to speak to this. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So the recommendation is for the board to enter into a contract with Calian Limited for $39,000 to conduct a hazard and risk vulnerability assessment across the region, including the city of Port Alberni. So this is a project that's needed to update our hazards across the region so that it can form the basis of the next update to the emergency plans across our region. Two proposals were received, and the recommendation is to go with Calian. And I can answer any questions if there are any.
Any comments or questions? Director Cote? And then I think I saw Director Beckett.
Thank you. Through the chair, a question about what the hazard list would include. Is it just regional district properties, or are we going outside of our area of buildings and properties and hazards? Thank you.
So it's across the region, and it's looking at all types of hazards. So tsunami, earthquake, wildfire, heat. The list is going to grow. There's several dozen hazards that the province lists, and we'll select the ones that we're faced with in our region. And that's going to be based on input of citizens, but also different agencies across the region and staff from the city and regional district.
Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you. So would that include properties?
Sorry, I'm not clear on what you're asking. It's across the entire region, so it's not necessarily focused on any one property.
Things like hydro assessments, where dams, that type of thing.
Yeah, dams are definitely one of the hazards we face in the valley.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with that, Director Roberts, go ahead.
Just a question. I note that it also covers the city of Port Alberni. Is there any comment by Mayor Minions on that?
Go ahead if you want.
No, I don't think so. This is just, I think, a great opportunity and really important work that needs to be done. We have done, and staff could probably speak in more detail, but we have taken on some assessments on our own. But I think that, anywhere that we're able to work together and look overall at where we're at as a valley and district is fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Director, now please go ahead.
So I'd like to move that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors award the Hazard and Risk Vulnerability Assessment contract to Calian Limited in the amount of $39,877.25, excluding GST, on a 10-month term commencing June 27, 2022, and further that the ACRD Board of Directors authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute the Hazard and Risk Vulnerability Assessment contract on behalf of the regional district.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments or questions? Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, would this assessment have any possibility of continuation for checking on things? So would it become part of our plan or emergency plan to keep tabs on what's happening in the future? Thanks, because it's only 10 months.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, so the hazards need to be updated regularly. Ours hasn't been updated since 2013, and I would say with climate change, the hazards have changed. So as climate change happens, as other risks impact our region, it has to be updated. So the project will run for 10 months, and then we'll have to relook at this in a number of years.
Great. Any further comments or questions? I would just note for the board's benefit, I'm more of a Rockford File guy. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All righty, that's great. That brings us to item H, but I don't know who's speaking to it. So thanks, Mike. Go ahead.
So this is just a report and a suggest a resolution that the board directs staff to support the city of Port Alberni in preparing an application for the local food infrastructure at the Dock Plus. Given the grant requirements, it has to go through the city, and the support will be primarily through the agriculture support workers and that portion of the regional planning program. And again, happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any comments or questions? Or Dr. Minions or Kribel, if you wouldn't mind moving it, go ahead.
I would love to. That the board of directors direct staff to support the city of Port Alberni in preparing an application to the local food infrastructure fund for additional infrastructure for the Dock Plus Food Hub facility and confirm that the ACRD will support grant reporting and administration.
I second that motion.
Thanks, Ron. Any further comments? I love seeing any progress with this whole project. It's so good. Okay. All those Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Is there any kind of in this new build on anything to deal with things like smelly offal or that type of garbage that's going to be produced? Thanks.
Oh, like OFFAL. Okay. Yeah. I think that's a part of the plan. Yeah. But I don't know that anyone here can answer that. Yeah. Okay. With that, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, that brings us to item I, which is the farm insurance resolution, or for UBCM. Who would be speaking to that? Yep, thanks, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a recommendation from the Agriculture Development Committee, and staff have prepared a proposed resolution for the board to endorse regarding farm insurance. And again, this is something that we've had a lot of discussion. I think it was discussed last year at UBCM. And I am, again, happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any comments or questions? Dr. Shannon, do you want to move it?
I would love to move this one. I would move that the board of directors endorse the farm insurance resolution and background document and direct staff to submit for consideration at the 2022 UBCM convention.
Great, thanks. And seconded by Director Cole. Any comments? My only comment is I'm going to make Director Shannon speak to this at UBCM. All right.
Because I've talked about it so much here.
Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to also be bringing this forward to the Municipal Insurance Association to talk about the creation of a farm pool, insurance pool, and hopefully they could help out with some suggestions. Maybe they might even want to take this on as a new initiative. We'll be meeting in July, so.
Let's do a motion afterwards for that. Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Dr. Cote.
Thank you. I wasn't really going to make a motion, but just I'll be attending the MIA executive meeting in July, the beginning of July. So I could bring it up then and see if it's something that that board would like to do a discovery on.
Okay, thank you for that. I wasn't sure if it needed a motion. This actually reminds me, once you mentioned the Municipal Insurance Association, is there a way that we can have a discussion about our hazard and risk and vulnerability assessment in relation to the Municipal Insurance Authority? And I ask that because I think insurance has a great interest in keeping abreast of the increased risks of climate change mitigation and so on and so forth. Go ahead.
Absolutely. MIA does frequent webinars that all our members, we are a member, that are free to our staff and to our directors to actually take, and they're on file, so you can look at them anytime. They also do offer grants for dealing with any kind of risk that we share, and they will rectify that risk with a grant. I know that Sprout Lake Park, Cougar Smith Park, has received a grant to fill in a couple of wells that we had, and that was covered by a grant from MIA. So if we ask them a certain specific question, we also have a ask us anything. So it's we have the ability to call, and we hire a lawyer's firm to be able to answer any questions through their parts.
Yeah, that's great. So I think that we don't require a resolution for any of that. I guess specifically, I'm interested in fires and floods and climate change related things. They're going to affect different jurisdictions, different regional districts differently, but I think they're also going to affect different like sub districts within the regional district differently as well. And I think an insurance mindset is something that we may want to take in relation to that, because we need to spread the risk around across probably the entire province. I guess I'm just bridging into how do we convince the province to take some of their money and to cover us in insurance even more so it's not more of a burden on us, at least at our place. Dr. McNabb, go ahead.
So, I mean, we should keep in sight that the municipal insurance authority is only insuring our assets and our risk and not the community risk. So our assets within areas that are vulnerable to flooding and even fire are minimal. Like they're on the low scale of the risk block. And so, I mean, our risk, the assessment will identify a part of that. And I think it is a good thing to have them aware of. But I don't think that specifically our airports and our water system that we're controlling, our fire halls, are in areas that are high risk. They're relatively low risk. So, and the building we're in, is fairly low in that state. The city of Port Alberni is also now a municipal insurance authority, and so some of theirs is a little different than ours, particularly the work yard, where it might be in a tsunami inundation zone. But yeah, I mean, if you got to kind of, they're not in taking the risk of infrastructures that are outside of our control. So
Yeah, I just thinking on the way that, increased numbers of incidences of weather or fires, you're throwing the dice enough times that something could have a material and mathematical impact on insurance, but also our asset management funds as well. So as long as those things are just taken into consideration, then I think I'm okay. Just it reminded me, so that's why we're taking this diversion. But that should be enough. Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. We also, MIA has the underwriters program where they come and they assess on their dime, basically, what our risk is. I know that Squirrel Lake Parks, the underwriters came and gave us a list of things that we needed to correct. We did correct those, and there's possible grants available in different areas. We are also looking at fire and flood, and we've had claims on those. So we're really looking at mitigating how we can assess and help communities with the proper information on how to move forward. I know the town of Lytton, we reached out very early on offering help, and even though the whole town of Lytton wasn't covered, but we're offering help. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. I think I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll do more personal reading on it. That brings us to the end of item 8. We don't have any planning matters today, so that's once in a blue moon, really. That brings us to staff reports. Does anyone have any items to pull out of the staff reports? Just remind folks we have a meeting schedule that's posted. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, could we have a motion to receive the reports, please? Thank you, Director Beckett and Dr. McNabb. Any comments? Last chance. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, 10.2 is committee reports. Director Beckett, you have a verbal. Please go ahead.
Thank you. We held our water advisory meeting on the 16th. We covered off a terms of reference. We covered off water rates and water model analysis, which, as you are aware, the board passed today. And we had an excellent annual report that identified the good and the bad, good being the excellent staff and water quality, the bad being the asset management plan, which identifies that we have some risks and we're falling short on putting money away for a rainy day. With respect to terms of reference, just a couple things. We noted that perhaps if you are identifying where you're getting some of your committee members from, for example, Chamber of Commerce, Community Affairs, we were recommending that staff identify in a predetermined calendar date when those folks are to be notified that we're looking for names to be coming forward from that group. And I think that was it. I certainly appreciated all the work that staff put into the reports in that evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you for that. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, I have some later, but I'm going to talk to HFN first. So with that, we're going to have a motion to receive the report. Thank you, Director McNabb, seconded by Director Roberts. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for the report. That brings us to member reports. 10.3. 10.3A is 911 Corporation. Director McNabb.
So our meeting is on Friday in Comox. So I certainly will be, we'll be having MCON there to discuss, or ECON rather, to discuss some of the issues they've had recently, and we hope to be coming up with some feedback that we can bring to the board with regards to what they're doing about resolving that. So, and our ECOM contract is also coming to a time when it needs to be renewed. So probably a good time to talk about both things. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, next up is the library, Director Cote.
Thank you. Good time for soup. They just opened their brand new branch. It's absolutely beautiful. The board now is looking at strategic planning. We're into it. Started in the spring with talking with staff and getting some suggestions from start with the executive board and the membership. So we'll be taking that next to the public for input on our strategic plan, and they're starting to do face-to-face meetings. So that's my report. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, Director Meetings.
Thank you. They had their annual general meeting last week. Audit and everything like that was reviewed. Good financial position. I had an opportunity just to talk about the city and a lot of the things that are happening. So it was nice to be able to share some of the good news stories that are going on in the community. And they elected a new board as well. Quite a few new faces on the board, which is the first time in a while. So it's nice to see some new people getting interested in that organization. I think shifts are always good just to bring in new ideas. And tomorrow morning is the first board meeting of their new board. And I will be attending that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That brings us to the Air Quality Council for Port Alberni, Director Bodner.
Thank you. There wasn't a meeting this month.
Thank you. That brings us to West Coast Aquatic. Director Steer, welcome, and please go ahead.
My apologies, in another meeting, of course. No meeting, so no report.
Thanks. The AVICC, Director Cote.
Thank you. AVICC is looking for a new executive coordinator. Liz Cookson has taken a new position with UBCM as their senior financial advisory person. And so we're looking to replace that. We still have a contract with UBCM for up to 6 months anyways, that they will support us through the transition, finding us a new administrator and filling the positions. Liz did more than what her contract said, so filling her boots is going to be quite the challenge. We've also been we have a subcommittee that's looking at advocacy work, and we're looking at some type of lunch and learns, possibly once a month to all our membership. So that is my report at this time. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Next one is Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee. Dr. McNabb.
So one of the things that was brought up in our meeting that isn't in the minutes there was the annual report. And one thing that is a bit concerning is our leakage level through the system is still, I believe it's 17% of the water that we're taking in is actually not being metered out. So that indicates that we've got leakages in the lines. So it is the target that we're moving forward with, replacing the asbestos cement piping and in the future. And so it's not going to be cheap, but neither is losing all that water. So that's that one. And I'm on the next one, which is the Sawakan Public Advisory, WEWAG group. Unfortunately, just to quote an old movie, what we have here is a failure to communicate. My fault. I somehow completely missed the meeting. Like I asked when it was, got an email back. That email went sideways on me, and I was actually in the same building as the meeting at the time the meeting was there, but I didn't attend it. Go figure.
Those things happen now. So thanks, though. So I guess that brings us to the Agriculture Development Committee. Director, Ron, go ahead before we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could, John, I had a feeling you were going to miss that meeting. So I actually attended on behalf of the city, and Heather skillfully walked us through the sustainable forest management indicators. And I think of the 42 indicators, the PFL 44 hit 36 with most of the ones they didn't hit were within the variance that they've placed on them. So overall, pretty good. One indicator that I always pay a lot of attention to is employment, and they didn't make that, but they're using numbers from 2011 when the industry was probably a lot less mechanized, and it's a 5-year rolling period, so it incorporates issues like strikes and stuff. So that one's difficult to achieve.
Thank you for that supplemental. That brings us to the Ag Dev Committee. Director Shannon, go ahead.
There we go. Our meeting is next Tuesday, so I don't have a report, but I am going to be happy to report to them from our 2 motions that we passed today regarding the Doc Plus and the resolution for UBCM. I know that was a really big one that the committee has been working on with staff. Like I know Heather and Anna have been working with staff on that to try and get something to UBCM about insurance. So thank you.
Thanks for that. Lastly, we have the Redfish Restoration Society, formerly the Central West Coast Forest Society. Director Roberts.
Thank you. I don't have any report. We haven't had any meetings recently, but I just want to comment that there are some public offerings coming up. There's a nature walk happening next week, and interpretive walks going on. They're working very hard in restoration, and I haven't received anything current from the group. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. And does anyone have any other reports? Okay, seeing none, if we could have a motion to receive the member report, please. Thank you, Director Roberts and Director McNabb. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Great. We have no unfinished business. We have the one item for late business, and that is a motion to call a meeting by Zoom for awarding of a tender. So I will move that the Alberni-Clyde Regional District Board of Directors call a special Board of Directors meeting on Wednesday, July 13th, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. in the Regional District Boardroom, 3008 Fifth Avenue, Port Alberni, BC, and electronically via Zoom for the purpose of awarding the tender for civil works for the West Coast Landfill Organics Facility. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Dr. Cote. Would anyone like to speak to this? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Paulo, did you have anything to add?
Nope, it's all good. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks. Okay, that brings us into question period. Do we have any emails from the public?
Mr. Chair, we have no emails submitted to our email address for public comment and input, but we do have one attendee today. So if the attendee had any comments or questions for the board, we ask that you put it in the Q&A now, if you wish to speak.
If not, that's okay. Going once, going twice. I have it open on my computer. Okay, so thank you for attending, though. It's very nice. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the open portion of our meeting. Before we turn off broadcast, I'd just like to read out the motion to close the meeting as per the community charter. So this is a motion to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter under sections 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district. 2, 91J, information that is prohibited, or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of FOIPA. Then secondly, 21(1)(a)(2) of FOIPA, commercial, financial, labor relations, scientific, or technical information of or about a third party. And 4 is 21(1)(c)(i) of FOIPA, harm significantly the competitive position or significantly with the negotiating position of a third party. So I will move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed?